Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. This is your captain, Randy Wright speaking, and as always, I'm joined on our state-of-the-art radio program by my first officer, Jeremy Grapenden. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show while Jeremy and I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before we may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, what can we say about that unspeakable tragedy and atrocity that unfurled before this shocked and horrified nation in the city of Dallas, Texas, the other evening? Well, as I'm sure you are all very well aware, Dallas is but a stone's throw to the north of your humble host here, and I find that all of these events hit far too close to home for comfort. That said, what we know for certain is that a black Army veteran who goes by the name of Micah Xavier Jones decided to get riled up by this allegedly racially motivated police-involved shooting in the town of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to bring about an act of wanton terrorism and violence onto the Dallas Police Department. Basically, what he said that his motivations was to kill some white folks, but in particular, white police officers. And so we know that there have been 5 Dallas area police officers who have been murdered in cold blood simply for the sin of being born white and for donning the uniform of their respective police departments in order to protect and serve a community. That said, as we have mentioned on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, the police are not meant to protect us in our individual capacity. Rather, what the police are there for is to maintain a sense of law and order within the community at large, thereby preserving the avenues by which we can punish those who do seek to infringe upon the fundamental and inalienable God-given rights of the individual popular sovereigns. That is the course of events that we face right now. We see that from the highest echelons of power, we are seeing that people like the President, Barack Hussein Obama, are purposefully stoking the flames of racial animus and hatred. It's not something that should be welcome in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. Rather, what it should be is that we take this opportunity to stand together shoulder to shoulder in solidarity and unity and let these political sycophants know that we are not just going to stand by and allow them to irreparably transform the United States of America, or fundamentally transform the United States of America away from a constitutionally endowed representative republic into some sort of Fabian socialist dystopia. But you see, this is the problem with the Fabian socialists. They want to go out there time and again ad nauseum and pit American citizen against American citizen. They want us to tear out each other's jugulars to allow our lifeblood, which happens to be our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights, to just cool on the ground and thereby leave the nation anemic and susceptible to these outside influences and changes that they have been basically meticulously working towards for this past 150 years now. This is how diabolical they are. They hate everyone, and they want to use the police in order to destroy the police. But when you think about it, what they really want to create is a police state, but where it's a centralized one, in which they exert entire and complete control over the police department, and it would be just a federal level. That's very reminiscent of what happened in Nazi Germany, and we've seen them call for this. In fact, Al Sharpton, back during the Ferguson riots, had been out there, being a race baiter as he usually is, but he was pushing for the establishment of a national police force and the abolishment of all state and local and county level law enforcement. Of course, that goes against the Constitution, because the only law enforcement agency that is explicitly mentioned in the clear and concise language within the 4 corners of our shared United States Constitution is the position of that of county sheriff. But, Jeremy, this is all just despicable. It's horrific to see that this is being accepted. And of course, the fans, the flames are being fanned by the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. And for what purpose? For what good other than to pit American citizen against American citizen in this continual battle of hatred, animosity, and this push for Fabianism, which really has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America.
I'm going to say this right now. For all the individuals out there that have made the decision where we're not going to trust the police anymore, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're not going to recognize them as having any authority to enforce any laws, shut your cave skulls, okay? Just shut your mouths. Because you have no idea what in the world they have to go through. You want to sit here and say, well, they have to have this kind of training, they don't have enough training. Guess what? Here in the state of Michigan, at least the local law enforcement agencies where I'm at, in order to become an officer of the law, you have to have the very minimum of a bachelor's degree in a specified field, criminal justice. That's a 4-year degree. So all these people say, well, they only get 6 months of training at the academy, and that's not enough. I don't want to hear it. If you don't know what the hell you're talking about, keep your damn mouth shut. Because you want to allow yourself to succumb to the propaganda on the TV and this and that because of your own ignorance, instead of looking into things and doing some research and getting the facts before you open your mouth or even think about something before you speak, instead of going off of a knee-jerk reaction and an emotional reaction. See, this is the problem, Randy. This is exactly what the Fabians love to do. It's their modus operandi. They love to use emotions in order to destroy things. They want tolerant. Oh, it's against hate speech. Oh, the police are bad because of a few individuals who may be corrupt. Well, guess what, folks? There's corrupt individuals in every line of profession you look into. You have corrupt individuals within the medical profession, corrupt individuals within the criminal justice profession, law enforcement, judges, lawyers, the whole 9 yards. You even have corrupt individuals who provide daycare services, teaching services, teachers. Look at all the teachers that have been caught having fornication with their students, their underage students. You even have individuals that are corrupt with taxi drivers. It goes all the way across the board. But it seems that people are just fixated on law enforcement. Why? Because they are an authoritarian figure. They enforce the laws. People by nature are going to be rebellious. I get that. But in order to be rebellious and to do so in a justified way, you have to have the facts. So before you open your skull caves of a mouth, get the facts before you opine on something like that. You have no idea what's going on. I take great offense to that. Even though I'm not a law enforcement officer, I've still gone through the vast majority of education required to be a law enforcement officer.
And it goes to the heart of the matter of what we have come to expect from this twisted machination and little mind of Barack Hussein Obama. Remember, it goes all the way back to when he said that the Boston police force, when dealing with that professor that was breaking into his own house, acted stupidly. No, they didn't act stupidly. They acted in response to a call. They were doing their duty and their obligation to help keep a community safe. Yes, but you see, that's the thing. The Fabian socialists don't want their special pet insular and discrete minorities to be held accountable for anything. And this is part of the whole thing of why we said that it's so dangerous when we break away from this notion that the United States of America is a nation of laws and not of men. It's because you create this dangerous, destabilized atmosphere that pits American citizen against American citizen. And the reason they want to do this is the same reason that Marxist-leaning types always do. They have to destroy what came before, what pre-existed the system that they're trying to implement, because they know that they cannot compete in the marketplace of ideas. Of course, it's intellectually disingenuous as to what they're trying to say. And we see that the guy that orchestrated the one in Dallas, he's claiming to be a reverend, And he was saying just before the shooting started, "Goddamn white America."
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be crass, folks, but that is exactly the words that came out of his maw. It was "goddamn white America." He is and the funny thing is, he's white. He's white. Now, why is it that this type of activity, this type of twisted machination is allowed to go forth? And have we once heard that there are going to be any hate crimes involved with this? Because there was a Black Power organization, a black supremacist group that claimed credit for the 12 officers that were shot, 1 civilian killed, 5 police officers killed. No one in America should have to go through that. No one. And instead, we see that Loretta Lynch and Barack Hussein Obama go out to the cameras of the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism to the salivating mainstream media, and they tout this whole thing of, well, it's just America's ready and easy access to firearms. Give me an ever-loving break. I'm sick and tired of it.
You know what else I'm sick and tired of, Randy? This whole auspice, this thing. And again, folks, brace yourselves, because this is just another shock and awe air raid on political correctness here. Okay? This is another theater, another bombing raid during the war on political correctness. These Black Lives Matters individuals, as far as I'm concerned, they are the biggest useful idiots the world has ever seen. Why? Because they allow themselves to be dictated to on how to behave and act. They're fueled with raw emotions that are detrimental to society as a whole. But everybody wants to be fixated on this crap, this propagandistic crap that law enforcement are specifically targeting black individuals, African American individuals. Crap. It's all crap.
Well, there's even studies that come out and show that there are far more white people that are shot by law enforcement. That law enforcement is much
287 white individuals.
And that law enforcement is much slower to pull the trigger on a black individual than a white one because of this cancerous doctrine of political correctness.
Mm-hmm.
So we're putting their lives at danger by buying into this malarkey that is being thrust down our throats by the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists. And of course, the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, they have to be held accountable for the role that they played in this. And you know they played the role in it. They have instigated this, going back to the Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman case,
Michael Brown,
Freddie Gray, all of it. It's disgusting, and it has to come to an end because it is tearing this nation apart at the seams. Of course, that is their very goal. That is their modus operandi. That is what they are seeking to achieve. But all it's doing is spreading animosity. And I have a feeling that once this brush fire spreads, much like the brush fire started by the mafioso Quafioso spread, they're not going to be able to control it. They're going to be shocked and surprised when the outcome is not what they designed it to be.
Well, here's another thing, Randy. They've been doing this for a long time. And it's not just with local law enforcement. They actually started doing this with the military. When Woodrow Wilson segregated the military, that's when it all began. That's when the shackles, so to speak, and the handcuffs, so to speak, started to be applied to individuals that were trained to do a certain job. When you look at the military, let's look at their rules of engagement. You can't even engage an enemy combatant anymore in the military. Why? Because it can be considered to be a hate crime. When we have individuals, these radical Islamic jihadists, Durka Muhammad Jihad, these ragheads, and yes, I'm going to call them ragheads because they're even that's too good of a name for them. When these individuals want to do nothing but set their lives on being hell-bent for the destruction of peace, posterity, and freedom, and they want to take everything away from everybody because it doesn't fit with their agenda, they are enemy combatants. And when our military is sent over there to do a job and their hands are tied because it's intolerant to engage them and to shoot and kill them, I'm sorry, But when was the last time that, or when has it become socially acceptable or even morally acceptable to not defend your rights or the rights of other individuals by using deadly force?
Just as soon as they tried to say that abortion is not murder, just as soon as they tried to take away everything that we hold near and dear in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. You see, it all adds up. If you look at what they're trying to do, the way they go after guns, the way that they just create this twisted propagandistic narrative, you see that it has no connection whatsoever with reality. That's the problem that we face with these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists. They are dedicated to the complete and utter annihilation of the United States of America, both as a nation and as a people. And we see that they are incrementally stepping up the pressure, upping the ante, for lack of a better term, with respect to this racial animosity bovine excrement. There is no racial problem here. When they sit there and say that we can't understand what they're going through, that too is a load of bovine excrement. There's only one thing that defines us as a nation and a people. It's not race, it's not creed, it's not even religion. It's the United States Constitution. But they can't have that because they loathe and despise everything that's contained within the four corners of that sacred document. And that's something that we have so frequently mentioned here on Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, and it needs to be addressed because what they're trying to do is to use the seeds of balkanization. Where do we even get that term from? We get it from the Balkan states. Go back 100 years ago, and you have these different disparaging points of view and identity that was just going off the charts in the Balkan states, and that sparked the First World War. That's what they want to do, folks. They want to spark a war right here in the heart of this, the longest contiguous running constitutionally endowed representative republic in the entire scope and course of human events. That's what they're trying to do. They are destructive little weasels.
Now, they want to amp the ante by attacking the Second Amendment and labeling, well, easy accessibility to firearms that allows this to happen. Tell you what, you want to up the ante? We'll see your little bet there, and let's raise it a notch, okay? You go ahead and place your bets, place your wagers, folks, and then we're going to raise it. How about this? How about, I have an idea. I'm calling for the complete disarmament of the Secret Service. Barack Obama wants to strip the American people of their Second Amendment rights. Secret Service forfeits their firearms right now. It's the guns, right? You can't have guns. See, if we're not allowed to protect ourselves, you, Mr. President, don't deserve to have the ability to be protected either. That's how that works.
You know what? Charlie Rangel's already come up with a response for that. Well, it's different with us. We're different.
Oh, because you're tyrannical elitists?
Yeah, that's exactly what it comes down to.
Go pound sand. How about that? Because you work for us.
They're not going to. They're not going to because, no, they don't think they work for us. They think that we're their slaves. And that's the way that this upside-down, twisted mentality of the Fabian socialist works. And unless and until we, as popular sovereigns, meaning we the people of the United States of America, start to fully realize this and start to act as is necessary and as is expected of us by our founding fathers, we're going to continue to see this death spiral not only continue unabated, but it is going to increase at breakneck speed. It is going to accelerate because it is unabated right now.
But guess what? But guess what? History is going to repeat itself yet again because the British Empire, the crown of Europe, the largest military, thought that the colonials and thought that the founding fathers and all the individuals were their peasants and slaves.
The colonists would have already been acting. The colonists would have already been acting.
That's right. And you know what? It's a damn shame. Because here's the fact of the matter. This is why I say history is going to repeat itself. Because Great Britain, and the Crown thought that the colonials were their peasants and slaves to do whatever the hell they wanted to do with. Now, these individuals, like Charlie Rangel and Harry Reid, Barbara Boxer, Dianne Feinstein, and the whole lot of them, they think that they're elite. They think that they don't work for us. They think that we're beholden to their every whim. Guess what? Farouk, you work for us. You do what we tell you to do. because we are the ultimate wielders of sovereignty. We, the people, ordained the Constitution.
Of course we did, and it belongs to us, and it doesn't belong to them. And that's something that they don't want to admit. And we've seen that with respect to the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media over and over again. The problem is, if they keep flooding us with these illegal aliens, we are going to have this attempt to fundamentally transform who we are, to make us this docile people that would just be malleable in their hands like putty in the hands of a potter. That's what they want. That's why they're pushing for all of this. That's why they're not putting the interests of the American people first and foremost.
Well, what they want and what they get are
until the American people stand up to it, we're going to see this continue.
Yeah, and what they want and what they get, or what they want and what they're going to get, are two different things. Because I guarantee you, I will die on my feet rather than serve on my knees. That's just the way it is. And if they don't like it, I don't care. Come get some. That's how that works. You're not going to dictate to me how to live my life. You do not own me. So if you have a problem, well, that's their problem. They think too much. That's their problem.
They don't think properly. Thinking is okay. It's just that when you think erroneously, that's when you start to have major problems, particularly with respect to a representative republic that is limited in its scope and application as our system is. And that's because it's based on the natural law tenets. You see, that's why they want all of this moral relativism. That's why they want to make it to where there is no right, there is no wrong, and that's why they have the twin cancerous doctrines of political correctness and moral relativism. Yeah. It's all designed as a weapon. And they've been working at this meticulously and incessantly for the past 150 plus years. It's a major problem.
Yeah. Well, guess what? All problems can be solved. Guarantee that. All problems can be solved. And they had better realize real quick, if they keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, the American people eventually will say enough is enough. Unfortunately, like you said, we're not there yet. The colonials would have been at war 10 times over already. But see, the colonials, they lived through that stuff. They lived through the harshest thing. When they had British soldiers kicking in their front door, walking in, taking their children, raping their wives and daughters, whisking their sons off to be inducted and forced into the British military, and then the husbands and older brothers either shot and killed or enslaved themselves, held prisoner, and all their property taken, and if it's not worth anything to them, they just set it on fire. See, history happened again in the 1930s and over in Europe, in Germany. Not only Germany, but looked at Poland, you can look at Italy, you can look at Spain, France, throughout all of Europe, and most of Asia. History will always repeat itself, and it's a real bastard when it comes to getting what it wants and to teaching a lesson. And people had better adhere to the lessons right quick, or else it's going to be very, very painful. It's going to be more painful than people imagine.
But what we have now is this whole notion that good is evil, evil is good, and that law enforcement is just to be punished and tortured. And for what? What is it that they are seeking to achieve other than the complete and utter annihilation of the United States of America, both as a nation and as a people? This is twisted. You didn't even have this under FDR, who was one of the worst presidents in the entire history of the United States of America. He was the first Fabian socialist, other than Woodrow Wilson, to really get almost everything that he wanted. Wilson still ran into some resistance with the creation of the League of Nations, among some of his other twisted Fabian socialist agendas. But FDR, he got no real opposition from the gutless opposition party. And that's actually when the history of the gutless opposition party failing to act in any capacity with a backbone whenever you had these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists in powers began. It stretches back 70 years. It goes back 70 years. And that is something that we cannot tolerate anymore. And that's why we are so disgusted with Donaldov. Now, Donaldov will sit there and try and say that he's for the police, just like he tried to say that he was there for the military, too. But ultimately, it's never about them. It's always about him. And he has always marched in lockstep for the vast majority of his 70 years on this planet with the Fabian Socialist Progressive Left. Always has.
Yeah, and again, I have a huge problem with individuals not having an understanding or even the knowledge, even just a basic knowledge of law enforcement. Now, some people they choose to go on career paths. They go to school for, medical or whatever the case is, but there's still a very basic concept. And my wife and I had a conversation earlier. The news was on and it showed pictures or the video of this individual. I think it was in Minnesota, the guy that was shot and killed inside his car by the police officers during a traffic stop. And she says, well, they shot and killed him. All he was doing was reaching for his identification. I said, here's the thing. He made what was known as a furtive movement. Okay. He was asked for his license and registration, and if he had a firearms permit or license to carry, so on and so forth, whatever. The thing is, he made the mistake of saying, I have those documents. They're located here. I'm going to reach for them. See, it's common sense, okay? It's very common sense. When I've been pulled over in the past, and I've been pulled over, first thing I do is I shut my vehicle off. I put my keys on my dash. I have my hands on the steering wheel, palms facing my windshield, and my fingers straight out. That way, when the officers approach my vehicle, they know I'm not a threat. If it's at night, I turn my dome light on, so they know I'm not a threat. And when my window is rolled down, I tell them, I'm armed. This is where my firearm is. If they don't see it, okay? And they'll ask. All you have to do is be cooperative. Don't make any furtive movements. Don't give them a reason. And people don't understand. It's common sense. Now, I'm not saying that guy, being shot and killed, it's a tragedy. Anytime somebody is shot and killed, it's a tragedy. Okay? The loss of life, regardless, is a tragedy. However, there are things what's known as justifiable homicide. This guy gave them a reason. They reacted according to their training. He did not notify them. He just made a quick movement.
Yeah, and
towards a concealable
that's what
place.
they always do. That's, you have to be willing to comply with everything, and that's what it is. I hear so many people say that, well, they're going to infringe upon my rights. You know where you fight for your rights? You don't fight for it with the police officers. You wait until you're in court. That is when you have your due process. That is when you do the fight. Unless and until you get to that point, what you do is you comply, whether you agree with it or not. Because, and you are allowed to use deadly force to protect yourself if you think it's a false arrest, but you damn sure better be able to prove it.
Yes. That's the thing. Again, exercising your rights comes with a cost. It's called responsibility for doing so.
And that's where self-determination comes from. It's this willingness to accept your duty and obligation to proactively maintain and safeguard your rights. Now, that is not easily done. It's easier said than done, but you do that by fostering that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared Constitution. And we really will be getting into this a bit more in the next segment, but I want to just say right here and right now to all of those who have been going to every avenue of social media and have been trying to sit there and say that all pigs should die, F the pigs, F this, F that, blow this up, do this, do that. Stop it. Go straight to hell. Because what you are trying to do is show that you have no allegiance, no loyalty to this country and to the supreme law of the land, which, pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2, is the Constitution. We here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, are dedicated, of course, to empowering the American people. But we are certainly not calling for the wholesale slaughter of our law enforcement agents and officers. They go out and do a very thankless job, and they have been attacked by these ruthless thugs. And what happened in Dallas, that is terrorism. Make no mistake about it, folks. That is domestic terrorism. And what was carried out there should be treated as such. But we see that Loretta Lynch and that Barack Hussein Obama just want to go down this politically correct Fabian socialist line that has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. And what I'm going to touch upon in the next segment is really going to get your blood boiling, folks, because of just what these people are trying to push and to foist upon us. Because it goes to show that they have been working in this deliberate fashion to force this twisted machination down our throat. Well, it will not be allowed to stand. We won't allow it to stand. And that's coming up next. Now, folks, I'm sure you recall going back to the 2008 and 2012 elections, how there were those Black Panthers that were trying to engage in election fraud and intimidation, voter fraud and intimidation. And what that all ties into is this attempt to go down this narrative that Barack Hussein Obama has wanted to force upon the American people ever since he first assumed the reins of political power back in January of 2009. And it goes to this type of separatist mentality that he's using, this type of racism that he just wants to double down on. He's the one that has caused race relations in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and community of popular sovereign of ours to fall to an all-time low, to a level that has not been seen since pre-civil rights era stuff. And what really goes down to this is we know that this Black Lives Matters group has gone out before and had these chants of what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. That's what they're pushing for. That is what their twisted machinations are all about. And it incited the violence that we saw spill over into the streets in Dallas, Texas. And the way that they finally got rid of this Micah Xavier Jones fellow was that they used a bomb disposal robot to go and detonate a device next to it. That's how they killed him. And I love that. I love that. It may seem like overkill, but no, that's welcome to Texas, MFer. Go to hell.
Yeah, that should be done a lot more. And I think that should be incorporated into police training, hostage negotiations, and things of that nature. That should be implemented into it. Why? Well, law enforcement agencies have always struggled with the problem of maintaining the safety for their officers first and foremost. That's the priority, because the officers are not safe. That means that they cannot fully do their job. So implementing something like that, I thought it was brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. I mean, kudos to the chief of police there. I forget the guy's name, David Brown, I think it is.
Yes, it is.
David Brown.
Did you know that his son was killed by the police? And did you know that he does not hold that against the police? Isn't it amazing that this Black Lives Matters organization is so twisted in their approach to it? And that other black supremacist group, I forget what it was called, the Black, what was it, Jeremy?
Black Power Political Organization.
Yes, the Black Power Political Organization going out. They don't care that they're hurting black police officers, because in their mind, they use this very, very nasty term, an Uncle Tom.
Well, here's the thing.
I'm sick of it.
This is how I look at it. All these individuals, these Black Lives Matters little thugs, I'm not even going to call them thugs, because at least
they're terrorists.
They're terrorists.
They're terrorists.
They're terroristic barbarians. That's what they are, okay? So if they have a problem with that, again, so what? Go to hell. I don't care. Well, my feelings are hurt because he called me a terrorist. Good. I don't care. I'm tired of your nonsensical crap. Okay? And here's the problem, Randy. Two things. Number one, when their backs are against the wall and they have nobody else to rely on because all of their little terrorist buddies tuck tail and run when somebody's doing something to them, who's the first people they call?
The police.
The police? Really?
Yeah.
So they hate the police, but when they have no other recourse, they have to rely on the police in order to get things done. Interesting. Guess what?
Well,
you're nothing but a bunch of cowards. That's all
They're
you are.
cowardly hypocrites. That's exactly what
Yeah.
they are. They're cowardly hypocrites. And then for Loretta Lynch to go out in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pavlon School of Journalism for the Salivating Mainstream Media and to not say any type of word of solace for law enforcement, but to give this sort of solidarity and unity with the Black Lives Matters thugs and terrorists, and to just besmirch and belittle our law enforcement officers in this country, that is sick. That had my stomach churning, and it should have the stomachs of every decent, hardworking, red-blooded American citizen turning. Because what she was doing is, first and foremost, she was trying to say that it's our fundamental and inalienable right to keep and bear firearms that caused this. No, these people are terrorists. They will go outside of the law. They do not follow the law. Murder is outside of the law.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, this is what they don't do. They try and say, look, if it's one Black Lives Matters individual, that doesn't carte blanche paint them all in that negative light. And in fact, there were so many branches of it that were trying to come out and say that no, this sort of violence isn't what they are about. And to which my response is, fine, prove it. Prove that that's not what you're about. Let us see your members and report your members who have made statements like that Micah Jones twerp did. So, you've got to prove it. And it's all of this love, huggy, dovey, touchy, steely crap that love will solve this. What? Transgenderism is going to solve this? No, I don't think so.
Oh, but there's another thing that people aren't touching on, Randy. If these individuals are sick of being oppressed, if these individuals are tired of being downtrodden and people taking their lives away from them, why don't they look at two places and act accordingly to two places? Number one, why doesn't the Black Lives Matter movement, why don't they organize themselves? If they're such hard asses, why don't they organize themselves and go out and start taking out, these La Raza and Sinaloa drug cartels that are raping and killing their own people and kidnapping them? And better yet,
they don't care about that. That's where they get their drugs.
And second point, why don't they go to cities like Chicago, Memphis, areas of Harlem, Brooklyn, Atlanta, different urban areas where there's the highest rates of black-on-black crime? Why don't they go to there to stop it? Oh,
because they don't want to.
Because they don't want to. Because they are oblivious to that. They're not really oblivious to it. They just don't care. Because
it doesn't fit their narrative. Their power narrative is that of attacking the American people. Their power narrative is all about going out and tearing this country apart, and they'll do it on racially based things. It's just cultural Marxism is what it boils down to.
This is how they justify the black-on-black crime in areas like Chicago, where, by the way, folks, last year there was, over 400 murders, black individuals murdered by other black individuals. This is how they justify it. Well, that guy, man, he shouldn't have disrespected them folks. He shouldn't have disrespected. He got what he deserved by disrespecting them. Really? So let's see here. You want to take away and attack a key impetus of our legal system, the police. You want to completely destroy them and get them out of the way, and you want to be able to take the matters into your own hands. Who the hell do you people think you are?
Vigilantes.
Who the hell do you think you are? They're not vigilantes. At least vigilantes understand, due process. These, like you said, these individuals are terrorists. They don't care about anything other than themselves and their agenda, period. That's why they won't go after the Islamo-terrorists.
Well, of course not, because a lot of them are Islamo-fascists themselves.
Correct.
Just look at Obama himself. Look at the ring that he wears that says that there is no God other than Allah. That is exactly the type of mentality that we're facing. It's a foreign and alien one that has no relation to all that we hold near and dear in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And the whole thing is, this cultural Marxism, these people are wanting to create an African-only nation. They are essentially the same as the Ku Klux Klan, but with an opposite race in mind. But you see, there's no mention of it being racism when they do it. There's no mention of this being a race-based hate crime. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. I do not like hate crimes. I do not think that that falls within the purview of equal protection under the law. It's trying to create these insular and discrete minorities, which the Constitution says you cannot do. But what we see is that there's even selective enforcement of unconstitutional laws. And of course, that's always what you're going to have happen, because the whole thing is it's a nation based on men and not of laws. That is the danger that we face. And of course, that's exactly what the Fabian socialists want to achieve, because it's going down this Cloward and Piven principle all over again, overwhelming the system to then have people crawl to the system to find a solution that the system created in the first place. And of course, it's not the system, it's the perverted system. It's the way that these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists have perverted the system that has pushed it into this, diametrically opposed territory to everything that we hold near and dear.
Now, here's the thing, though, with these individuals using that rationale that I gave on it for justification of what happens in Chicago, Atlanta, Memphis, and all these other, major cities with high urban areas. What they don't understand, what they've done when they use that kind of rationale, they are admitting that they have no regard for the law. And here's why. Because they're saying, well, it's our culture. Our culture allows us to do, we've been disrespected for this long, and it's the white man that, I'll tell you what, name one person who is still alive that has ever been in slavery. You can't.
In the United States.
In the United States, you can't. In fact, name a person who is no more than 3 generations ancestor to somebody who was held as a slave. You can't. It's impossible. It cannot be done. And so, since they don't exist, they're not alive anymore, that means that the individuals that once held slaves, well, they're not alive anymore either. So they want to say that, well, these individuals, your family, enslaved my family, and blah blah. You know what? I didn't enslave anybody. You didn't enslave anybody. These individuals, these officers, these white officers in Dallas didn't enslave anybody. They didn't oppress anybody. What? Because they wore a badge and a blue uniform, then that's a sign of oppression? Well, I'll tell you what. You know what else is a sign of oppression? This retarded-looking get-up that the Black Panthers wear. These military
black
fatigues.
Beret and the fatigues.
Black beret,
yeah.
Fatigues, that's a sign of oppression.
And the black pussycat.
Yeah.
These black pussycats need to be thrown into the litter box and have their faces rubbed in it, because that's exactly what they are. They are worthless. They are worthless, feces-producing organizations that have no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. And it is time that the American people, in their capacity as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, stand shoulder to shoulder and say enough is enough. We are not going to tolerate these twisted designs that are being fomented by these anti-American thugs. There really is no other way to describe them other than anti-American terroristic thugs. And as for this Micah Jones, may his soul rot in hell forever, he should have been reported a long time ago. But you see, ain't no snitches in the black community, apparently.
Snitches get stitches. Snitches get stitches. Yeah, really? Yeah. So
that mentality has got to end.
Well, again, let's look at this. They want to justify all this by saying, well, it's our culture, man. It's our culture. You know what? It's not the American culture.
It is not culture. It's barbarism.
Yeah. For the life, and here's the biggest problem. Again, we go back to individuals like Mark Lamont Hill, who want to add fuel to the fire and defend these pieces of crap. Because that's what they are. They're pieces of crap. And people say, oh, you're racist. Wrong. I'm not racist. In fact, actually, I take that back. I am racist. Do you know why I'm racist? Because the definition of a person who's racist is for the securing and procurement of the posterity of that race. Guess what, folks? There's only one race, and it's the human race. And do I want to see the human race survive and endure? Hell yes.
Yeah,
Does
but they're
that
not
make
going
me
to
a
take it that
racist?
way.
Then yes,
Sure.
it is. Because there's only one race, it's the human race. It doesn't matter what color anybody's skin is. If you bleed red blood and you have a heartbeat and you're capable of speaking and walking upright and understanding and thinking for yourself, then you are a human being to a certain extent for most
But, you know,
cases.
that's not going to go well with the Ku Klux Klan type
I
that
don't
throw
care.
their
They can go
weight
suck on their own
behind the Donald off there. They are the ones that are going to sit there and try and become the Republican Party. Remember, he wants to create this workers' party. Well, it's going to march down this twisted 19th century mentality that we're seeing expressed by groups like Black Lives Matters. And then we've got the Klan supporting Trump. Now, what has Trump come out and said about any of this? I've seen a lot of the Lion Branch Trumpidians come out and say that Ted Cruz should act on this in the Senate and that he hasn't been doing enough to stop any of this. And then when you try and press them on Trump, well, Trump isn't in the position to do anything about it. Well, he certainly funded those who have supported Black Lives Matters, including Hillary Clinton, his presumptive opponent in this general election cycle that is slated for November. Now, he has a lot of explaining to do, and he has not done any of it. He has not done any explaining of what it is that he has been trying to carry out here. And he has no open policy positions. He has no grip or handle with respect to policy issues or the Constitution for that matter. And in the next segment, we will be touching on that even deeper. That one's going to get your blood boiling, folks, if it isn't already. But what we see here is that these black thugs want to sit there and intimidate everyone. They want to do the same thing that the frothing at the mouth Islamo-fascist terrorists do and just spread this carnage, anarchy, and terror within the hearts, souls, and minds of the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, we the people. Well, that has got to come to a swift and an immediate end. And the only ones that can do that are we the people.
With regard to Donald Trump, Donald Caesar Trumpolini, Adolf Hitler would be proud. Adolf Hitler would be so proud. See, he's behaving exactly the same way Adolf Hitler did with regard to people who were not of German descent. And it's not just the Jews, it was the Gypsies, it was anybody who was not born in Germany, or anybody who was born in Germany but not of German descent or German blood. And that's the problem. And see, Hitler sat back, he allowed all of his little minions, all of his little troglodytic jackboots to run amok and create all these problems. See, what we're seeing here with Adolf Trumpolini is the only thing left he has to do is burn his own Reichstag, Trump Towers down, and blame it on somebody else. That's all he has to do.
And it won't take much for him to do it, and he'll do it.
And eventually he'll do it. Eventually he'll do it. Why? Because it's in his nature, because he's that much of a narcissist and egomaniac to where he'll do it and he'll blame it on this. Why? So that he can implement another agenda that he has waiting in the wings. That's what he's wanting to do. And again, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, he cannot and will not beat Hillary Clinton. It's not going to happen. Hillary Clinton has got too much stuff just sitting on the back burner, simmering, just waiting to be pulled off the burner and put on the table for people to eat.
And it's because that she has known about Trump all along. Remember that they were close friends, that he was her top donor. And that all ties back into something that we've been warning about here on Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, since our first episode almost, that aired on September 11th of 2015. What we are facing right here and right now is the expansion of this attempt by the left to utterly annihilate the party platform in which conservatism has found a home since 1963. Or 1964. And the reason they're doing that is they realize that they cannot compete against the conservative movement in the marketplace of ideas. And therefore, they have to turn to this sort of chicanery to push forth their twisted agenda, their twisted machinations. And you want to talk about slavery. It's the Fabian socialists that want us to be enslaved to this top-heavy, centralized government. They want us to bow down at the altar of the high state and just do whatever it is that they tell us to do. Well, poppycock, I'm not going to do it. You're not going to do it. Certainly our first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward, is not going to do it. We are not going to accept this twisted type of system that has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. And as we mentioned in the previous segment, the colonials would have already been up in arms 10 times over. They would have never allowed America to ever get to the position or place that she finds herself in right now as we speak into our microphones. That speaks volumes about what is happening in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And I, for one, am ready to see the American people finally get sick and tired of these attempts to bring about tyranny, oppression, and despotism here in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Because unless and until we start coming together, standing shoulder to shoulder in solidarity and unity, and saying enough is enough, where is it going to end? Where is the end?
Well, the end comes when everybody's doors are kicked in and certain individuals like you and myself are either shot dead or taken
just made to disappear.
Just made to disappear. And people who say, oh, great, he's going off on a conspiracy theory tangent. Well, you know what? It happened in our country not once but twice, actually 3 times if you want to include the Civil War. It happened. It also happened in other parts of the world. History has a tendency to repeat itself, and again, history is a ruthless bastard when it wants to teach people a lesson.
Yeah,
it really is. And how do we prevent that harsh lesson from coming down? You mentioned it. We have to be knowledgeable about what's going on. We, the people, are the only ones that have the authority to maintain our republic. If we do not take up that obligation and see it through, then we have given up everything. It comes to the point to where it ends, again, we're hauled off in cuffs or in chains and shackles or just outright shot and killed or just made to be disappeared. That's what's going to happen. And this government that we have, if you can call it that, I prefer tyrannical regime. And I'm not talking about just this administration. I'm talking over the past 150 years, because that's what it's become. They're just waiting. They're waiting in the winds for the right time to strike. And they
think that time is coming. They see a light at the end of the tunnel, and they think that means that their goal that they've been pushing for so meticulously now for the past 150 plus years is within reach. But what we need to do is make that be liberty's light. We need to make it to where it crushes them.
And again, this goes right back to history, because the British thought the exact same thing of the colonials when they were taxing them, taking their property, doing this, doing that, and then they ramped it up and started seizing their property as a whole, again, enslaving them, taking them as prisoners, so on and so forth. And then when they came for their guns, that was the last straw. That's when the colonials, the farmers with people who have a bunch of farmers with pitchforks. Well, guess what? You know what? If it was farmers with pitchforks and other gardening tools and farming tools that defeated the world's largest and strongest military at the time, imagine what we can do now. Because the United States is the largest and strongest military. But here's the thing. This is where history puts in a little twist. I don't know of any individual that is serving in our military that will turn their backs on or turn their weapons and arms on the American people. I can't name one single person. I know a lot of people in the military. I know a lot of veterans. And everyone that I've talked to, this absolutely not. I will stand there with you shoulder to shoulder. We will throw this off. We will not have this. So what's going to happen? This tyrannical regime that we call a government, at this point, when it comes down to this, what are they going to have to utilize? Well, you have the individuals with the Black Lives Matter. And again, remember, this whole organization was spawned out of Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, and a few other individuals because of the color of a person's skin. It was prompted up, it was emboldened, it was perpetuated and encouraged by this administration that's in office now.
Yes, this regime pushed for that, and they remember he made no bones about the fact that he was going to do this. If you go back into the first term of Barack Hussein Obama, you see that one of the things he said was that he wanted his own private army. Yeah. Well, guess what? He's got it. He's got it with the Black Lives Matters thugs. And we see that just what happened in Dallas, that is basically floating out the trial balloon to see if it's working. And I wouldn't put it past this little thug to try and use that to declare martial law. I know that that's been a conspiracy theory that's just been foisted out there time and again, but look at the way it's ramping up. And of course, he would wait until the last minute, the last possible minute that he could implement that. That way it wouldn't, have any way for him to be thwarted. It would be that much more difficult for anyone to implement any countermeasures to it, and that's what he's banking on. But just look at the way that it's been ramping up time and again and again and again, and getting more and more and more violent each and every time. It went from the madness that occurred in Ferguson, Missouri, to outright murder that occurred on a wholesale, level there in Dallas.
Yeah, and everything in between, including Baltimore, New York City, and so on and so forth. It's just been a ramp up, over and over and over. Now, people would say, well, what's his main objective of this? Well, we all know that he thinks he's above everybody else. He thinks that he's king. He could, Randy, he has been heard citing as Abraham Lincoln as his favorite president. Mm-hmm. Well, we know that Lincoln was a tyrant. Mm-hmm. We know that Lincoln was an absolute tyrant. He violated the Constitution umpteen times, was never held accountable for it until John Wilkes Booth came along. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that was the accountability that had to take place. And again, it comes down to, he lauds this individual that's a tyrant. He says his favorite thing, his favorite president, so on and so. One could only ask the question, what is his ultimate agenda with this? And I'll tell you.
Tyranny.
He wants to suspend the elections. I wouldn't put it past him for trying to suspend all these elections coming down the pipe in November and say, well, because we have all this mass hysteria, all this chaos going on, we're going to suspend elections until we get this sorted out, and he's going to declare himself king. He's going to declare himself to be a tyrant. Now, what's stopping him from doing that? Nothing's stopping him from doing that. But what's
certainly not the gutless opposition party.
But what is stopping him, or what can stop him from, once he does it, from it even taking a foothold and actually the Second Amendment? Ultimately, which boils down to whom? We the
people. The way that it was always designed and intended to be, going back to the inception of this country. And you see, folks, that's why there's always this duplicitous aspect of what these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists are attempting to do. They're attempting to redefine who we are as a nation and as a people. And that exactly how would they achieve that? By acting in the same way that Barack Hussein Obama has been with respect to this sort of thing. That's why we can't put it past him. It's because he is willing to do any and everything in line with this to pit American citizen against American citizen to achieve the goals that he wants to do. And why? For what purpose? Other than to become a tin-pot dictator. That's what he has always been about. And it's not changing. It's not going to change, because we've seen it over and over again, ad nauseum.
I'm going to add this in here real quick, Randy. If he has a problem with us saying this, too bad. He can go straight to hell, too. Because the fact of the matter is, he doesn't have any authority. The moment he violated the Constitution, any and all authority he had as executor of laws under the Constitution as President of the United States is gone. It's gone. It is void ab initio. It does not exist anymore. So if he has a problem with that, too damn bad, he can go straight to hell.
Right. And that's the thing. What we are facing here is a come to Jesus moment here in the United States. We can either buck up and do what our duty and obligation is and stand up for the fundamental and inalienable God-given rights that are ours, that means everything in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, or we can give up and allow this tyranny to reign supreme. I'm not going to allow that to happen. You're not going to allow that to happen. And certainly our first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward, would not allow that to happen. And that's why they want to do everything to tear us down. That's why they want to attack us. That's why they want to carry out all of these things. And do not think that Donald Trump is some sort of savior on this. We are going to hit that in the next segment. That's coming up right after this. As I mentioned at the close of the last segment, we're going to touch upon Donald Trump's lack of knowledge with respect to the Constitution. Part of the whole problem that we're facing with respect to these Black Lives Matters organizations and all of these other things that are attempting to divide and conquer the American people and that are attempting to foist this twisted, frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist agenda down the throats of the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, we the people, is that there is this attempt to sweep knowledge about the United States Constitution under the rug. That's what these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists are all about, what they've always been about. And we know that the quaff waffler, quaffioso, mafioso himself had a meeting with Senate Republicans and House Republicans when he was in Washington, D.C., just, last week, I believe. And he went up to Jeff Flake and Ben Sass and started attacking them. And then when one of them asked him a question about how he felt between the relationship between the President of the United States of America and the Congress pursuant to Article 1, what he thought and felt, he didn't have a response for it. He said that he wanted to protect the first, the third, the fifth, and the 12th articles of the Constitution. Well, folks, there is no Article 12 to the Constitution. There never has been, there never will be. It's right next to Article Mon, Section Existence, Clause 0, because they are twin parts of the Constitution, meaning they're not in there. But that's the thing. He has clearly stated back in 2012, I believe it was, that he's never fully read the Constitution from cover to cover because he's never found any inherent value in it.
Yeah.
And that's sickening.
How can he, again, I brought this question up before. How could he say he's doing this, running because the American people need him to run? They need this. They need a strong economy. They need a wall. They need this. We need to kick ISIS ass and blah, blah, blah. How can he do any of those things if he doesn't see any value in that? How can he be for the people if he sees no value in the very thing that defines us as a people? It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. And when it comes down to it, this is the only time I've heard him speak on the Constitution, other than when he regurgitated the 14th Amendment, when he regurgitated what was written out for him, quite poorly, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. That's absolutely it. But see, here's the thing. As we've mentioned before, he doesn't care about we the people. He doesn't even care about the United States. If the United States was to become a third world crap hole, he would be just as fine with that because, hey, he would still be able to have his little empire.
Mm-hmm.
Now, wouldn't he? Of course he would. In fact, he has little empires all over the world. Mm-hmm. That's all he cares about. His legacy. Well, guess what? His legacy is going to be completely destroyed. And he doesn't even know that yet. He doesn't even realize it. Now, in the last segment, you mentioned that people need to stop looking to Trump to save this country.
Right.
That's not just directed at for Trump. That goes to every candidate across the board, including Ted Cruz, because it cannot be the burden or responsibility of one individual holding the highest office in the land to save this. Remember, again, history rears its ugly bastard head with regards to Benjamin Franklin when he walked out of Independence Hall and that lady asked him, Mr. Franklin, what have you given us? He says, a republic if you can keep it. A republic
I saw a meme recently that had that statement. It showed Franklin and it said, a republic if you can keep it. And then it showed Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. And then it shows Franklin again. I take that as a no.
Yeah. Yeah. And Franklin also added on to that at a later date. And even prior to that, he made the comments and then reiterated them, as did several other founding fathers, that those that are willing to sacrifice liberty for any modicum of safety deserve neither and will surely lose both. These individuals, when they place all their hopes and dreams and all of their feelings of being safe squarely on the shoulders of Adolf Trumpolini, thinking that he's going to make this country safe and great again, which it's still, it's almost, no matter where I'm at, and thank God I haven't heard that statement said when I'm on the road, because people don't know what road rage really is. I could show them, but every time I hear that, my blood not only boils, it evaporates. It just vaporizes and goes away, because...
But the major problem that we're facing right now is that if we really want to get this country back onto track, we've got to go back to having a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of the Constitution. And the problem is we had a constitutionalist up there, but he was forced to suspend his campaign because of this combined effort of the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, and the Democrats that were crossing over and voting for him in the open primaries. It's disgusting to see what's happening. And it's not going to get any time, it's not going to get any better at any time in the foreseeable future unless and until we start to address these problems that are facing us. And that's something that we have not been doing very much lately. And why is that? It's because of complacency. That's a danger that we face as a nation and as a people.
And that reminds me of what Thomas Jefferson said. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold in this republic is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Now, what that means, folks, it's not just not standing up and speaking for your rights and acting on your rights. To remain silent in your obligation of maintaining your rights, to remain silent by not having a fluent working understanding of our shared Constitution. See, remaining silent is not only verbal, it's also physical actions. It's body language, your actions as an individual. If you stand by and do nothing, you fall into the trap of becoming complacent. You get worked right in with all the other lemmings that are marching lockstep with each other over this cliff to our death.
And that's what it's been designed to be by the Fabian socialists.
Yes.
Remember,
and
the Fabian socialists like to appear as wolves in sheep's clothing. That's what they've always been about, and that's what they've always tried to do. And what that means is that they could be able to interact with society, to be able to blend in with the upper echelons of society, and thereby lull people into a false sense of security. And what they want to achieve by that is that they can then take full control. It's all about power, corruption, greed, and control with these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists. And why is that? Again, it's because they realize that their ideology cannot compete in the marketplace of ideas. They know that people won't go along with it because it's emotionally based. It cannot work within logic or reason. In fact, it's diametrically opposed to any form or facet of logic and reason. And so they want to create this type of totalitarian system to force that down our throats. And then if we stand out against them, it brings up that old adage from China, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. That's another fundamental facet of what their ideology is, what it is that they are attempting to force upon us. And so this is why you see the historical revisionists that infest our institutions of education from coast to coast and border to border, trying to rewrite our history to make it to where our founding fathers were nothing more than a bunch of sexist, racist, homophobic, slave-holding white men that didn't give a damn about anybody. And that's the same type of malarkey that the Black Lives Matter group does. And yes, folks, I called it Black Lies because it's built on lies. But remember what Aristotle said in The Art of Rhetoric, that it's much easier to accept the truth and people more easily believe the truth than they do a lie. But Fabian socialism and all of these left-wing philosophies and ideologies are built on nothing but lies.
See, and this whole wolves in sheep's clothing thing, it reminds me of when I was a kid. Saturday morning cartoons, watching Looney Tunes. You see Foghorn Leghorn and that dog, you know, dressing up like, you know, wolves and sheep and going back and forth, back and forth. See, we the people, we need to stop being sheep. They could be, you know, wolves in sheep clothing all they want, these Fabians. They're wolves dressed up like sheep so they blend in with us. But what we need to do is we need to take a playbook from Warner Brothers and the Looney Tunes, and we need to become wolves dressed in sheep's clothing ourselves. We, the people, need to infiltrate their ranks as the wolves in sheep's clothing. Adopt their
sheepdog. We need to become the shepherd sheepdog.
Absolutely.
Chase the wolves off.
And see, this is a great thing. This, you know, logically speaking, that actually plays right into military strategy, and I'll tell you why. Snipers, conceal and cover. Conceal and cover. The whole purpose of a sniper, okay, is to take out or to complete specific objectives and tasks. And in order to do that, you have to be able to utilize the art of infiltration. It even goes into with our spy network, with the CIA, so on and so forth. Being able to blend in, speak people's language, adopt their mannerisms and body language. Okay? That's what we need to do. See, it all boils down to fighting fire with fire. These pricks are hell-bent and relentless on destroying our republic. And the only way to preserve it at this point is to, okay, welcome them with open arms. Infiltrate their ranks, adopt their mannerisms, adopt their characteristics, and then when they least expect it, because they're going to be like, well, wait a minute, this is working too good. This is working better than we thought. These people are becoming more complacent than we could ever have possibly dreamed. We have them right where we want them. And then guess what? We
spring a trap.
We unzip that clothing that we're wearing that makes us look like sheep, and now the wolves are revealed. And what happens with wolves? Wolves are pack hunters. And you know what? The United States citizenry is the largest standing militia in the entire world. Why? Because of our Second Amendment.
And you see, this is why they purposefully misinterpret what the Second Amendment is all about. Remember, they first tried to say, well, because the National Guard is the militia. No, the National Guard is not. But they tried to say that was why the right of the people to keep and bear firearms was no longer necessary. But then when that got shot down, they tried to flip it around and say, well, it just means hunting. Well, no, that's what the militia clause is for. You see, they're purposely being obtuse when it comes to the proper reading of the Second Amendment. It's because they don't want people to understand what it is, because they know that the people will use that against them when they try and throw their coup. And make no mistake about it, folks, they are based in a Marxian ideology. And that means that whatever type of change, permanent fluidity of change that they are seeking to implement on this country will be fomented through violent revolution. That's what the communist dialectic calls for. And it's, it's failed everywhere it's ever been tried. But they think that it'll work here. They think that it just hasn't been the right people that have tried it, and therefore that's why it's always failed. What they don't want you to think about is that the Constitution is the longest running contiguous constitutional, meaning uninterrupted constitutional document in the entire scope of human events. That is not some small soft option. That's not some small feat. That is an amazing accomplishment and achievement, and it shows the infinite wisdom and foresight of our founding fathers when they came forth and devised and drafted and ratified our Constitution 235 years ago. And what was so amazing was just how humble they were about it. And humility is something Donald Trump doesn't understand, but if you think about James Madison, who was considered to be the father of the Constitution, he said, it's not a very good document, but it's the best we could do at the time. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and in his eyes, it wasn't a very good document. And nowadays, if we look at society as a whole nowadays, Randy, I can only think of the individuals that I know of personally. I can't even count them on one hand that have the wherewithal to even begin to devise a document like the Constitution.
No.
It's heartbreaking. It's disturbing. It's depressing. It's gut-wrenching. And I know for a fact this is not the country that my father put the uniform on, took an oath to uphold, protect, and defend, and swear an oath for. This is not the country that I know.
It's not the country that you were born in.
No.
It's not the country I was born in. It's not the country that I went to learn to be a lawyer to defend. What we are seeing now is a complete breakdown of the societal framework and fabric. And that has been by design. It's Cloward and Piven all over again. And remember, folks, that Cloward and Piven were those academicians from Columbia that wanted to overwhelm the welfare state to then make a permanent communistical state. By creating the problem through government, they would then have the people crawl on their knees to the government to provide a solution to the problem that government created in the first place. Now, you can't tell me that that is not a foolish and erroneous way of thinking, that is not diametrically opposed to the mindset that our founding fathers had. Because it clearly is. It's certainly not in line with the way that this country would have originally operated and was ever intended to operate. And that's why they loathe and despise the Constitution. They loathe and despise this ability to be self-accountable, self-responsible, and then from that self-accountability and self-responsibility comes self-determination and self-respect. You see, America has no self-respect right now. All of the polls are showing that. All of the studies that have come out are showing that. And it's because of the way that these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists, leftists, don't want people to be held accountable for their deeds, their words, and their actions. And that is what has led us to this untenable situation that we face now, both as a nation and as a people.
It completely, it's demoralizing. It's completely demoralizing, and Randy, you and I have had discussions amongst ourselves and with our first Air Marshal, Nelson Ward, to where, we've even suffered a taste of defeatism ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And, through you and I, our conversations, we had to remind each other that now's not the time to give up. We must never give up. Never, 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 never give up. Ever. We cannot. It has to come to fruition, and it has to be done in such a way that we, the people, preserve our republic. We have no other choice. This is not something to say, well, it's Sunday and I don't feel like it today, I'll just do it tomorrow. Well, I have a perfect t-shirt for individuals like that. Procrastinators unite tomorrow. Okay? You can't. You have to be vigilant. You have to be
Proactive.
you have to be adamant about it. You can't just sit idly by and do nothing. It reminds me last week when I was at work, I had a conversation with the residents at work, and on the 4th of July, and I asked them, we had a group conversation. What does Independence Day mean to you all? Not just the history and not just, what your activities are, but what does it mean to you in your current position you're in? And I tell you what, I was amazed. I was blown away, and I was highly impressed by some of those individuals' responses. It floored me. And that, situations like that, especially with the individuals, a couple of them were, 20, 22 years old, younger than us, they got it. They understood exactly what it was. They understood they made mistakes. And their only recourse that they have is to acknowledge those mistakes and do everything they can to remedy those mistakes and move on and better their lives. It's like my baseball coach in high school used to tell us, when we make an error on the field, he says, you make an error on the field, he says, play over it. Play over it, because if you dwell on it, you're going to continue to make mistakes and make errors. You have to focus on what is in front of you. You have to be able to acknowledge the mistakes that you make, and we all make mistakes and we all make errors, because the error is to be human. We're not perfect. We all make mistakes, but it's this is where it comes with the accountability and the responsibility to recognize those mistakes, especially those that we make while exercising our unalienable rights. And you know what? Accept the responsibility for them, remedy the situation, and move on. And don't make those mistakes again. Learn from them.
And it's why you have to be goal-oriented. What made this country work as well as it did for as long as it did is that the American people always managed to set goals for themselves. That has always been an integral part of what it means to be a true ultimate wielder of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And think about it. We, the people, established this government. That's what the whole onus and impetus behind the preamble to the United States Constitution is all about. It is about discussing that aspect that we created this government and to give the reasons why we created the government. Now, people like Black Lives Matter, people like Donaldolph Julius Caesar Trumpolini, they're not going to understand that. They don't see value in that. It goes against what they are trying to achieve. And what they're trying to achieve is foreign and alien to the American system. And it goes against all that we hold near and dear. And that is why we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have so staunchly, so adamantly opposed them.
And we'll continue to do so, because it is in our best interest as the ultimate wielders of sovereignty, we the people, it's in our best interest to do so. It is in our best interest to learn from these mistakes. We have an individual, Adolph Trumpolini, running for president of the United States. Why? Because people have made the mistake of falling for his chicanery and his carnival barking ways. They pretty much forced out the only constitutional candidate we had. Now, I'm not, again, this is not to say that Ted Cruz could save the United States. It's not about our country being saved by one individual. But you know what? It makes it that much harder for we the people to do what is right, to stave off the beatings, because our morale has been diminished so poorly that we have a long road ahead of us. It's like my dad keeps saying, it's going to be a long, hot summer. And I guarantee you, it's going to be a long, hot summer. We're only seeing the beginning of it with these instances with Dallas.
Already, with the delegates We already see that they're trying to quash the uprisings that are beginning there.
Yeah.
That's not going to go over well. It's not going to go over well. This could be a repeat of 1968, but it will be much worse. Remember, 1968 was full of race riots, and then you had the riot at the Democrat convention.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a major milestone of crap for America. That was a bad year. And 2016 is shaping up to be a bad year too. But it shows that the light of hope would come up in 1980. Perseverance. Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. If we can if our country can survive through that, look at what our country, since its inception and founding, has been through, and we've come out of it, and we're still here. We are still the largest free republic on the face of the planet. We're still there. We're vigilant. That is what made America great, and that has never gone away, and it never will go away. So again, to make
that's
America
what Trump
great
doesn't
again,
understand.
He doesn't understand. He gets it. He just doesn't give a damn because it doesn't fit his narrative. Instead, it fits using the opposite of that. Fits his narrative by emboldening it, by making people more complacent, by making people more reliant upon believing what he says rather than thinking for themselves.
And quite clearly, he doesn't know half the time what it is he's speaking about. Half the time, he doesn't even know what he's saying. And that's why he's consistently inconsistent. It's why he is just an idiot.
I think it's actually in thirds. There's him, John Barron, and John Miller. So,
well, I don't consider those two dandruff flakes to be real people. Just like I don't consider him to be a real person. He is this bad parasite that's formed of old dandruff from his dad. That's what it is.
And
that's what he is.
This whole thing is shaping up to be this Fabianistic Leviathan that is just, self-consuming. Well, again, it's the same as adopting their strategies and tactics, becoming the wolves in sheep's clothing ourselves. We have to become that Leviathan in order to destroy the one that's already in place. There can be only one.
No, Highlander, please. Because Trump was just in Scotland. No. No, bad, Jeremy, very bad.
The point is there could be only one sovereign entity, and that is we the people.
And not Highlanders.
It's not Highlanders. It's just
thank God.
It's bad. and honestly, I wasn't even trying to make a Highlander reference. It's just
so I'm punishing you. I see.
Yeah, a little bit, but that's all right.
Yeah. Well, what it really comes down to, folks, is that we have to stand together in our capacity as popular sovereigns. That means that we stand up for the rights not only of ourselves, but of our fellow American citizens. That is why we are one nation under God, indivisible. That indivisible part is the rights of the people, that we stand up for our rights, and we stand up for the rights of our fellow Americans. And unless and until we come back to that realization, you're going to see these forces of division, these forces of racism, tyranny, hatred, and all of that just try and work in their twisted machinations. And what good does that do any of us? Really?
Nothing. Not a damn big of good at all. And again, I have to reiterate, the beatings will continue until morale is improved. And that's just the way it is. And until we the people figure that out, again, to quote my father, it's going to be a long, hot summer. And it's not going to be just this year. It's going to be perpetual. It's going to keep going. So
yeah. And really what it comes down to is that we have to be responsible for ourselves. That's what we've given you, a republic if you can keep it. That's what that meant. We being able to keep it means that we have to stand up for our rights and for the rights of others. And again, where are those rights found? In the 10 Amendments, the first 10 Amendments to the United States Constitution, or the Bill of Rights. And where that becomes so important is when you realize that there was a movement even at that time that wanted to keep it out, and that movement was the Federalists.
Mhm.
The Federalists that wound up destroying themselves because they tried to make government too big. Well, that's what we're facing now. We have two Federalists trying to run the country when, in fact, what we need is a little dose of anti-federalism. And folks, the Anti-Federalists were about giving you the Bill of Rights. The Federalists gave you the 9th and 10th Amendments within that. Together in unison, that made the perfect government that we have today. And that's what we must always be dedicated to. And certainly that is the mission statement that we have adhered to here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, going back to our first episode, which aired on September 11th of 2015. We will never back down from that message. We will never back away from it. We will never turn our backs on it or abandon it, because it's too important to provide you with the tools necessary to secure that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution, and thereby your fundamental and inalienable rights, is what we are dedicated to. Now, with that said, it is time for me to send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. We promise you she is not a member of Black Lives Matters or even Flight Attendant Lives Matters, because hers doesn't matter. She's just going to pour you alcohol. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I want to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. As always, I've been joined by my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. Folks, we invite you to leave any questions, comments, or concerns you may have either here on our YouTube page, our Google Plus page, or our Facebook page. And on top of that, we invite you to follow us on Twitter with the Twitter handle @RadioAviationEX. One more time, that's @RadioAviationEX. There you'll find the departure board that has my Twitter account, Jeremy's Twitter account, our Blogspot page, and the Cafe Press account, which has all sorts of trinkets and goodies, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Shot glasses for those drinks that our flight attendant is going to be pouring into, well, proverbially speaking.
And nobody can understand what it is to be like our flight attendant.
No.
Just so you know.
Well, she puts up with us because, well, she has to. She doesn't have a choice.
Exactly so. With that said, folks, it's great to have you aboard. We'll see you next time. Do take care.